You're listening to the ADHD Heroes Podcast, a podcast where we speak with the heroes of the ADHD community, namely educators, mental health professionals, and of course, those with ADHD themselves, to gain insights, tools, and most importantly, inspiration towards succeeding and thriving with ADHD. I'm your host, Rabbi Shmuel Reich, a high school Rebbe and an ADHD coach in private practice. Welcome to the show. Hi there. On this week's episode, I spoke with Leslie Josel. Leslie is the founder of Order Out of Chaos, a company that helps students with ADHD and other neurodivergent challenges, as well as their parents, navigate the world of education. This episode is timely since it is final season for high school, as well as a Regents season for high school in New York. We discussed why studying is so difficult for kids with ADHD, even though they can read a book uninterrupted if they enjoy it, the challenges of knowing how to study, identifying when studying is difficult, even though that isn't what it looks like, why studying for tests can be harder than doing homework, shame, guilt, and other difficult emotions around struggles with studying, listening to music while studying, creating an environment that makes study easier, movement while studying, dealing with screens, parental involvement in a way that is helpful but not too helpful, doing homework in the bathtub, you heard that right, and a lot more. We also had a previous episode that highlighted some detailed study strategies with Andrea Zions. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. I neglected to tell Leslie that we were not on video. My bad. So at one point, when I asked her about a challenge, she said this and raised her phone. So just so you know, that is what she is referring to. Shout out to the Chinuch Today podcast with former ADHD Heroes podcast guest, Rabbi Yerachmiel Garfield, and on to the episode. Enjoy. Leslie Josel, welcome to the ADHD Heroes podcast. I'm excited for our conversation today.
I'm so happy to be here. I actually love the name. I love that you have heroes. I think that's just it's a great feeling right off the bat.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. So we have the heroes who are fighting to do well for themselves and the heroes who are helping them. So we're blessed to have lots of heroes around. Heroes
all over the place.
Excellent. Let's start off with a little bit about yourself and your background for those who are not familiar.
I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version because I have been around for 23 years. So I know we're limited for time. And I always tell people, if you want to hear my story, please head to our site. I started Order Out of Chaos, which is a global virtual online business or company for parents and professionals who are raising neurodivergent children. And I started it back in 2004 when my son, whose permission I have to tell the story, and I think that's important that sure. I say that I don't talk about him without his permission. He was diagnosed with ADHD, executive dysfunction, and a whole sorts of things. And back then there was nothing. So one foot in front of the other, made up a lot as I went along, started it as a soul person going, house to house, person to person. And now we are a hearty staff of 20. We have over 150,000 members in our community and have always stayed true to the mission that we are here to support and celebrate both parents and students.
Amazing. Okay, so it's that time of year where there's a lot of studying happening.
Or we're rounding it up. Yes, we're like between the college and the high school. We're kind of bridging both right now.
Yeah. So why is it that studying is so difficult for teens with ADHD, especially because you have parents who are wondering, hey, when they like the book, they can read it for hours and hours and hours. So why is it that studying for their Regents when we're here in New York, why is that so hard?
Well, I think that's a very big question. And so I'm going to try to give you the 36,000 level view. I think what parents have to realize is, first of all, if your child has ADHD, you have executive dysfunction, and they go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other, and you have to think of executive functioning as what I like to call purposeful actions. It's what controls, the effort, the attention, the initiation, even your working memory. That's remembering to remember. But simply put, if your child's brain doesn't like what it's doing, it's very hard to stay initiated and activated. So give them a good book to read, give them a great podcast to listen to, give them a video game or even a basketball game. And I don't always want to focus on video games, but studying is not everybody's, I don't know, I'm neurotypical and I hated studying. So unless we can infuse the activity with something fun and interesting and game-like and give it its dopamine that it deserves, you're going to have a lot of kids who just can't do it. That's number one. But I really think it's important to also, and I'm not here to disparage teachers in any way. I work in the schools all over, but a lot of your students do not know how. And that not knowing how is a huge, huge piece. If the brain has to try to figure it out, it's might not be capable of even doing that.
I mean, that's one more hurdle.
Another hurdle. And it's also, if you have a certain amount of effort in the tank and you have to use it up to figure out what it is you have to do. How do I study? What tools do I use? How much? And my favorite one is, when am I done? Well, I've just used up 15 minutes of that 20 minutes that my brain can cognitively study. And I think we forget about that piece a lot.
That's a very good point. And that ambiguity is very unpleasant for the ADHD brain.
So we work with students all the time, and we will kind of do this as a little game. We'll say to a student, if I gave you this assignment, if I said, go to page 52 and do problems 1 through 5, does that give you pause? I'm not asking if they can do it academically. Do you understand what is being asked of you? And 99 and 9/10% of the students will tell us, of course, I go to page 52, problems 1 through 5. Nothing my brain has to figure out. Okay, next command, go study. They fold like a house of cards, right? It's just too much overload. It's too much decision making. And in that executive functioning that I was talking about, the organizing, the time, the working memory, decision making or lack thereof is a huge one, and not one we talk about often. So that's a big, big piece, the figuring out.
Where's the decision making? Where does the decision making play a role here? Meaning,
how do I do it? What do I do? What tools do I use? What do I study? How long do I study? All those things.
You mean like the breaking it down?
Not just that, all of it. That's one of it. Right. Even setting a schedule. How much time do I have? If every single thing is a decision, that's going to wear on them.
Got it. Okay, so here's what I'm picturing when I talk about the unable to study, and then there's way more than that. So what I'm picturing,
give it to me.
Okay, I'm picturing a guy with a book, or a girl with a book,
or a girl with a book,
and they're sitting in their bedroom and they're spacing out. And to me, that's like the best case scenario, like the least frightening version of it. Nothing's happening. They're getting frustrated, but it's not a mess. But that's the most basic image. There are probably other images where the parent doesn't even realize, or the student doesn't even realize that they're trying to study. They want to be studying, but it is so difficult and challenging that they can't even get started. What are those other scenes? Yeah. What do those other scenes look like?
Oh, I think that one is a quieter one. I think there's the emotional one. We see a lot, but it doesn't always have to be loud. It can be quiet. It can be overwhelming. It can be your child just getting frustrated, like the dog barked, or their sibling made a noise, or the snack wasn't right, and they fly off the handle, right? They get overwhelmed, they get loud, they get frustrated. Their frustration on not being able to do what it is they need to do or want to do gets channeled in a different direction. So that flying off the handle when you're like, wait, we were fine 2 minutes ago, and now all of a sudden we're in eruption, could very well be that. I call it, there's also kids that do everything else but what they have to do. So if you have a child that's all of a sudden color coding, or we see a lot of that, again, it's color coding or reorganizing or deciding to clean out their notebook, or making more and more and more flashcards, but not actually studying them. So like that, that productive procrastinating, that's another way that I would be, red alert. There might be some, disconnect between being able to do what I have to do and, wanting to do what I have to do.
Right. So I would say that observation is super important.
You have to play I Spy with your child. You just have to. You have to be always like, I don't want to say always, because that's another thing. But yes, there's a lot of things that are not said Like I'm a big believer in watching. And I'm going to tell you a 2-second story. When not anymore, obviously, but years and years and years ago, when I first started this, I would go in-house, meaning I would go to someone's home. And I would say to the student and the parent, I don't want you to think I'm not doing anything. I'm going to be a fly on the wall. I just want to observe. And I could tell so much. How many times did that student get up to, I need to get a pen. I need to get a pad. I can't find this. That wasted energy is another way that they're not doing what they need to do. This constant, oh, I'm hungry now. Oh, I need to use the bathroom. Oh, I want to change. So that observation piece is huge.
That for a parent watching their kid do this, that's a communication. It's not a communication that they're not trying. It's communication that they don't know what to do. Am I getting that right?
There's a great saying that I would love everyone to know. It's not this, well, it's two things. A lot of kids will say, I know what I have to do. I just can't do what I know.
Right.
And then back to my point, there is a subset of kids that do not know how to study. It's a learned skill. It's a hard skill, and they just don't know how. And the other thing, and I think this is important too, is for some kids, when it comes to homework has a finiteness to it. It has an end date. It has a due date. It has a grade even sometimes. So again, with a lot of times with studying, there's no accountability to it, right? There isn't. There might be an accountability to the exam, but there's not an accountability to the studying. And that accountability, that structure actually helps a child to initiate.
Right. I mean, it gives them a definition of what they're doing.
Exactly.
And they see land.
Right. I always say they see the horizon.
Right. Very good. What should parents, teachers, or students understand about ADHD to feel less shame and guilt around this sort of experience?
How long do we have? That's a real, I don't know if I can, I'm a straight shooter. I think you got that message. That's a hard question to do in a soundbite. So I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with everyone always being mindful of two things. That I'm going to go back to my ADHD and executive functioning. I never really focus on ADHD. I focus on executive functions. Why? Because executive functions tell your child's story, tells your student's story. It tells you what they are challenged with, right? Are they time blind? Do they have weak working memory? Are they mood dysregulated? So what I want parents to understand about all of this, and teachers, is that you in essence have two ages. Okay. Now I'm going to give you in about 90 seconds what I do in about an hour on one of our webinars. So everybody hang on, we're going to go for the ride. So you have two ages. You have your chronological age, let's say I'm 13, but you also have what's called executive age. And what pains me is how many parents come to me and say, I was never taught this. So what executive age is if your student, we call them students, if your child has any type of executive functioning challenge, they will be about 30% less that chronological age for that challenge. So you might have a 13-year-old and all their 13-ness, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Verbally, athletically, socially, all the things. But if they are time blind or disorganized or can't focus, you have a 9-year-old. So all of that language, they're lazy, they're stupid, they're not doing what they need to do. All that negativeness has to leave the building. The word should needs to leave. And we need to realize that this is brain-based behavior. And more than anything, you need to meet that student where they are on their executive functioning age scale, not chronological.
Very good. Okay, so if I can, I guess distill that just a little more.
Sure.
So a kid with executive function challenges in the area where they are challenged, they're 30% behind their peers. We got to meet them right there. Forget how old they really are.
Got to meet them there. So and the negative comments like they're lazy like I always tell a kid, if you have an adult that tells you you're lazy, you go back and say, I'm not lazy. I just have a hard time sustaining effort. Right? And they're like, I love that, Leslie. I'm like, me too, because we have a joke at Order Out of Chaos where with our coaching, kids can use any 4-letter word they want. We don't care, except for one word they're not allowed to use. And that is lazy.
Oh, very good.
Not allowed. So that kind of language is not going to is obviously it's unproductive and it's hurtful and it's shameful. So we want to make sure that we are really meeting that student where they are.
Got it. What are some other complicated emotions that might come up around studying for kids?
Big one is cognitive load. And that's just a fancy way of saying overwhelm. So, when your kid's brain gets flooded, when they can't take anything in anymore, when they just can't figure it out, overwhelm, overwhelm, overwhelm. I will tell you, like I've said, I've been doing this for 23 years, and we've seen a real trajectory in what kids really present with. And back in the day, it was very concrete. It was time management and organizing and those types of things. We are now in the anxiety overwhelm phase of students. So overwhelm or cognitive load. So we do everything. We teach as much as we can to underwhelm, to like, how can I underwhelm you? I know that's funny, but when you're funny, it's memorable.
Right.
So there's a method to my madness, but we want to reduce cognitive load. Small sound bites, not too much information all at once, not too much studying all at once, chunking things down. So that's a big one. I would say mood regulation is another thing. A kid's internal dialogue with themselves. I'm lazy. I'm not smart enough. Why can't I? That internal dialogue. So again, language matters.
Right. Very good. Okay, so hopping over to the positive side of things. Yeah, let's do it. What are some of the more common strategies you teach teenagers? Specifically, we'll start with the ones that don't involve the help of a parent or adult.
Okay.
And is that a positive? I want to think it is.
I don't necessarily think any of this conversation is black and white. I don't. I welcome a parent's involvement if it's appropriate.
Right.
So, there's a great way of saying there's caretaking and caregiving, right? So I always say to parents, before you dive in, make sure you're doing the right one, So that's a big one. So I don't have a problem with parent interaction as long as it's the right one. So body doubling is, I'm trying to now give you things that a parent could actually do with a student. We are big body double believers. And what body doubling is, if you don't know, it's when your child's in a room and there's someone else in the room that's anchoring them and keeping them focused on the task. And it's usually done by just sitting or standing or being close by. There is no talking. It's not tutoring. It's not looking over their shoulder and saying, you didn't get that one right. No. So that actually helps to keep us. So if you have a child who's constantly gravitating to where you are, and you're like, go away, go to your room, go do it there. They're actually telling you they need grounding and they need your presence. That's a big one. Music, huge. Again, so many parents say to me, I don't want my kid listening to music. It's distracting. No, it's not. Hear me. I'm going to say it again. Been doing this for 23 years. It's also research proven, right? Music helps the brain activate. It helps them plan. It helps them initiate. What I do with our students is we create playlists. So they're listening to the same music over again, which makes the music less distracting. My older students will have different playlists for different subjects, right? Math is a little more like Funkadoo, where you might have English and social studies, a little calmer. And then my younger ones, but the other thing that music does is it acts as a timekeeper. It lets kids see where they are in the process. And if you are looking to build that sustained effort muscle, then your child needs to see where they are in the process. The third one, these are things that parents can help or assist or suggest. The third one would be environment. We, again, don't think enough of it. And it is the number one motivation tool that we have for students. So setting up an environment that is energizing or colorful, or by a window, because that's what your child needs. Anything that's going to activate and welcome the brain. And then the last one I would say is movement. Movement helps move. What do I tell my kids? Not my own kids, meaning our kids. Movement is like a smoothie. It is just filled with all the good stuff, right? It's just a great, I know, but it's how I talk and it is who I am. But movement helps us initiate, it helps us lay down learning, it helps the brain. That's just a fancy way of saying remember things. So get your kid up, The worst thing you can ever do is have a kid who is neurodiverse sit in one place in the quiet and with no breaks. No, we want them writing on walls. We want them moving. We want them pacing. We want them outside on a trampoline or bouncing a ball or using sidewalk chalk. Any way that you can infuse movement and an experiential experience, your child's cognitive load, there's that word again, will feel less heavy.
Very interesting. For a parent who's like completely neurotypical and cannot believe that this will help their kid, what should we tell them?
Go to my website.
Okay.
Watch my webinar. Seriously, I'm not being funny here. I've been around for 23 years, friends. A lot of what I talk about is, my institutional history, but I am a certified ADHD student and parenting coach. I follow the science. I follow the research. This is what I do is I take the research and then I find user-friendly, fun, game-like, dopamine-esque ways to infuse your child with it, or students with it. So yes, go to my website. That's my answer.
Excellent. Proof is in the pudding.
Proof is in the pudding, friends.
Excellent. Okay, so what are some things that come up when these strategies are implemented? What troubleshooting might need to happen? What could go wrong that we can head off before?
Oh, we know what can go wrong. This is what can go wrong. So this is not about studying. This is literally about stepping into your parental authority. And I know that sounds funny coming from me because I'm very student-centric. I am very student-centric. I am the one who's going to look at a parent and go, like they need to pick what works for them. And they need to have choice and control. They have to have agency. I don't mean that in a permissive way. I firmly believe that it's the parent's job to set the parameters, but it's a child's job to negotiate them. That is parenting 101, particularly for those that are neurodiverse. But I do believe that a parent needs to step into their parenting authority. And the phone has to have rules. Screens have to have rules. And if I was a betting woman, I would say that 99% of you listening are going to tell me it's the phone or the screens that are getting in the way of it. And it's not getting in the way. I want to put a little context around it. It's not getting in the way because your kid is being argumentative or they're being disrespectful. You have to look at this as dopamine, right? So I like to tell you there's good dopamine and there's bad dopamine. So if your kid is doing anything that their brain is struggling with and it is hurting their brain, what are we all going to do? We're going to go look for something that's going to make us feel better. Oh, I do it. I write column after column, article after article. It gets tiresome. What do? Oh, let's go on Nordstrom.com and see what's for sale. I know you're laughing, but all of you out there are going, wait, I do that. I pick up my phone and look at Instagram, or I'm checking the Knicks score. Okay, maybe that's, those times. Sorry, I'm a New Yorker. But that's the same thing. I'm looking for good dopamine. So you have the right to set those boundaries and make sure when your child is in that study that we're providing them with the good dopamine, which is music, which is their environment. All of those things are actually good dopamine.
That is, if we start with the music and the nature or whatever creates that good environment, I'm imagining things can still derail. What can those look like?
Of course, things can. Of course, things can derail. Listen, I think there's more of I think there's a question in there, and so I'm going to take the way I interpret it, and I'm going to answer it my way.
Sure.
Is what can a parent do? I think what you have to do is play very much I Spy, and I think what I would be doing is, I know this is going to be hard for a lot of you, is depending on the age of your child, you have to let your child struggle a little, because unless you do that, not only will you not be able to see what is going on, but your school won't either. And what I see a lot of is parents who are like, okay, I'll write it for you, or I'll answer it for you so you can be done. And then the student goes to school and hands in, and it's a perfect assignment and everything is done. And then when something goes wrong in the classroom, the teacher's perplexed. Well, I don't understand because homework is perfect. So in some ways, you have to let things, like, you can't always troubleshoot everything. And I'm a believer that you can help your child. So here's a great example. I'm going to give you an example. If your child has a hard time writing, by all means, set up an environment that works for them. Maybe they dictate to you and you type. Maybe you give them a recording instrument and let them do voice to text. Maybe you find some great AI tools that will help them. What I don't want you to do is write it for them. I want you to go back to the caregiving scenario that I put together for you.
Got it. Okay, yeah, so I think that's covered. What else is delicate about, I guess you covered a lot of that, but what else is delicate about the parent's level of involvement?
So there's a great term called learned helplessness. Have you ever heard it?
I have, yeah.
You know what learned helplessness is, right? And so I think what happens is, look, I've been at this for 24 years. I keep saying I am married. I have a husband, but I'm the expert. So he tended to let me lead. And I have a child. I mean, he's an adult now, but he's neurodiverse. And what I realized earlier in life was that it was way more important for him to have skills that were life skills than study skills. So was my kid doing laundry when he was 14 years old? You betcha. Does he know how to change a tire? Absolutely. Wasn't allowed to know how to drive until he knew every single thing there was to know about his car. Yes, I am that crazy parent, right? Everything. You name the life skill, that was it. And I would really want you all to, I'm not saying study skills are not important. Trust me, it's what we do here at Order Out of Chaos. We teach study skills. But I want you to come from it from a life skill perspective. Because number one, the most thing you want for your child is to be a problem solver, to be able to advocate for them. If you are constantly doing for them, what you're basically doing is sending them a message saying, you're not capable. I don't believe you can do it. I don't trust you. And I think that is the absolute wrong message to send. So instead of jumping in, it's time to lead with questions. What is getting in your way? What are you having trouble with? Where can I help you? And we tend to be much more like, you need to, I want you to, we're going to do it this way. And if I can say this, it's funny, I did a podcast first this morning and someone said, what's the one thing you wish parents were more of?
Right.
And my answer was curious.
Very good.
That's my word. I want you to be more curious. Ask your child, what would work better for you? How would you like to do it? Where would you like to? What works best for you? So that's my answer.
Right. On the flip side, when the parent is getting the sense that the kid doesn't really care much to study at all, and maybe it's because they don't know how,
yes.
How does the parent gain that in?
So I think here's another little fun thing, not fun, but something we ask parents like all the time. So when I'm doing a webinar about homework and studying, I ask this question.
Right.
I'm like, tell me when homework or studying, more so studying, when does it start? When does it start for your child? And they'll say, 4:00 or after dinner. And I'm like, wrong answers all the way around. Studying or homework starts the minute your child steps into their first class of the day. Did they understand it? Did they listen? Did they remember it? Was there working memory? Did they bring? All of that has to happen. Everything has to, all of these things have to happen for your child to be able to activate when they get home. So if that's the case, and we have to start here. So we're over here, but all of it has to start here. Where does my parents have to go? Back to the beginning. You must go back to the school. You do not have to do this alone. And I find that that's a big thing for parents. They feel that homework is their burden. And I am a believer that it's not. I hope I can share a personal story to make parents think that I'm not crazy. But when my kid was growing up and studying and homework would come home, I would put a break on it and I would go back and say, listen, not my problem. I have many, many hills to die on in my own home, and this is not one of them. So we need to figure this out. And that's what we'd do. I would go back to the school and say, okay, clearly something is not working. We need to figure this out together.
Okay, as far as the student himself or herself, if they are ready to roll but want to hear our help, what can we tell them for things they can do themselves?
So I have a lot of study skills. So what I find with kids, it's really twofold. Again, and I don't want to beat this one to death. A lot of it is I don't know how, so we teach them. And a lot of it is the way they study. So some kids actually know how, but it's the way they do it. So a couple of things that we like to always have kids do. We talked about movement, movement of body, huge, because again, it allows, when you sit in one place, everything it gets exhausting, right? I'm doing math. I'm kind of doing math. I'm going to tell everybody I'm doing math, but I'm really not doing it. I'm so not doing math, right? Because the brain drain is real. So we have kids shift subjects. That is actually I know it's game-like, which is huge for us. We like everything to have some fun dopamine, but it's steeped in the research. So 2 ways to do it is if you have an older kid, they can put their homework in different places around the house. So I have kids doing math in the bathroom. Yes, we do, in the bathtub with no water. It's so many of my kids love it because if they're sensory seeking, it's small and cold and intimate and activating. And we set a timer. And what'll happen is I'm working on math, and let's say the timer goes off for 33 minutes. They might finish whatever they're working on, but not all of it, and they move to another subject. That switching of subjects actually keeps your brain engaged and you actually retain information. If you are working on one thing and one thing only, it's like an overstuffed suitcase. Things just fall out. So you want to do that switching because it keeps the brain activated and engaged. So you don't have to move around if you don't want to, but you definitely want to do different subjects. And if anyone out there is listening and you are a Gilmore Girl fan, there is a great scene with Rory, the daughter, who has her 4 subjects lined up on the dining room table. And she's like, when I'm done with Anna Karenina, I go to calculus. And when I'm done with calculus, I'm on to Greek and Latin, back to calculus. It's actually steeped in research. With smaller students, what we do is we play hide the homework. So we'll have a parent put homework under the kitchen table, in the back seat of the car, in the tub, wherever they find it is where they have to do it. It's very activating and engaging. So if you notice, so a lot of what I'm doing is so much about their environment and how, and not so much about what. And I really want to focus a lot on that because I think we don't talk about it a lot, is that kind of dopamine game, fun activities that you can do with offer to your kid. But for our older students, we have something we call the 4 core. So this is, again, research proven that for us to really lay down learning, we need to see it, we need to say it, we need to do it, and we need to hear it. And if we only do one, we only get about 25% of whatever it is we're doing. So we're looking always for what we call an experiential experience, right? Sounds like fun. If I'm a kid, I'm in. Okay, what's my experiential experience, right? So can I do it? Can I see it? Can I say it? Can I hear it? And we call it the 4 core. And what we'll ask kids to do is pick 4 study tools. Pick a see it, say it, do it, and hear it. Now, they can overlap some see it's or do it's, right? And that is a great thing once we teach it that they can actually do on their own. And what it does is it provides them a roadmap. So an example would look like, okay, a do it, that's easy. I'm going to go maybe do my old tests and quizzes if I'm studying for a final. My hear it is, or my say it is going to be my study group, right? We're going to teach each other. My hear it, maybe it's not a real hear it is YouTube videos. I love watching YouTube videos. It helps me to understand and clarify things that I'm confused about and so forth. Now they have a roadmap to follow. Now they know what tools to use. And we go through that with them. We go through and we tell kids, if you're a creative kid, draw a graphic novel. If you are a techie kid, make a mock website. If you're my theater kid, I love my theater kids, I was one, then hey, let's sing the Latin alphabet, right? all of those are experiential experiences. Your kid is more likely to do it because they're going to tap into their best interest. It's going to provide them with that 4 core to get it into their brain, and it's going to be a little less cognitive heavy.
Right. And in your webinars, I've heard you mention "make it fun" as a slogan.
Well, I like it. I don't want to just say make it fun. I really want to always say provide. I like the word game-like better,
Right.
because I think games, there is a seriousness to games,
Right.
but games are challenging, but they're fun as well. I think those two pieces really need to be put together.
Got it. So if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like the term game, because it has a connotation of challenge, it activates a little more and it focuses a little more.
And don't discount the fact, everyone, when you speak to your kids, using this language helps. So here's a fun fact. When we we have coaches, we coach hundreds of kids. We don't use the word studying. That word studying is god awful. That 5 little word makes kids spiral. We really like the word practice, because kids understand practice. They do. Think about it. Right? They're on teams, they're in shows, they play the piano. 99% of kids understand that word practice, and it doesn't make them, spiral.
Right, it's
They're
not scary.
like, all right, I understand it. But the word practice, actually, they can understand that. All right, I don't play in the soccer game until I have to practice first. I'm not in the big show until I practice my lines. There's a growth to it. There's a beginning, middle, and end to it. There's a repetition to it. And I think that's really key to getting a kid on board, is the language you use.
That's very interesting. You mentioned before the concern of studying feeling endless to a kid. How can we address that to the kid themselves?
So we hear it all the time that one of the things that, I'm going to use my language, that drives kids batty is that, at least, sorry, I'm trying to be clean, because we're not, when we talk to older students, we give them that freedom to say, tell us how you feel, and we will give it to them right back, is that we understand that for them, it's interesting. Not every kid activates on homework either. That's a whole other conversation. But homework doesn't give them that overload, because they understand, what it is.
It's quantified.
It's quantified. That's a great way of looking at it. It's quantified. Studying is not. But I want to just make one more point, because I think this is going to be helpful for parents. There's a lot of kids out there too that study, and I want to make sure we get this in, that do study and know their material. But then they go to do it on an exam. They go to take an exam, and they don't do as well as they think as they should have, because there's a lot of test anxiety, and the test isn't done in a way that shows their depth of knowledge. We've seen, and when I say we, is we're working hard in different avenues and different capacities to, whether it's on a 504 or an IEP, or just even building support services, or even just a conversation with the teacher to present that to a teacher and say, would you be willing, if my student can show you study tools that they've created and that depth of knowledge, would you include that as part of their grade? And we are seeing a lot of teachers, and I came out of COVID, that there was a little bit of a relaxingness to that, and saying, absolutely, whatever they got, bring it on in.
Sure.
And I work a lot in the schools, and teachers go, it's mind-boggling, because I see a kid who will, literally build a mock website about Mesopotamia.
Cool.
But when they're asked to do a multiple choice question about it, they can't.
Right.
So I want to give that to parents. You asked me about how parents can also get involved, and particularly, so that's a great way for a parent to say, you know what, I'm going to go advocate for my kid.
Right. That's very good. Okay, bringing it back to finding an end to quantifying.
So yes, you're right. The thing that they make is when are they done? So there's a few ways to do that. And we do that a lot with the tools that they use. So I'm going to give you the one we use all the time, because I think this is across the board something every parent and every student knows. It's a study guide, right? I feel like a study guide, every kid gets a study guide, if they're even high school or, even middle school, middle to college, there's always a study guide. And 90% of the time, that study guide is given to them by their teacher or professor. And usually what happens is your student takes the study guide, they sit down, they take their notes and whatever else they have, and they fill it out. 99% of the time, it's in chronological order. And then they read it. No. Big fat no. Okay. Not helpful. No. Oh my goodness, no. So this is how we do it. Or I do it, or I've taught. And then what happens is it gives your child a doneness, right? So what we do is we say, okay, we need 3 copies of that study guide. Ask your teacher for 2 more. If not, we'll just create it ourselves. Okay. You're going to, and I wanted to give this to you because I think this is very applicable, right? I don't want to give you like a 36,000 level view. I want to give a tool that actually helps a student know when they are done. Okay, so step 1 is exactly what I described. We're going to fill out the study guide the way we always did it, right? With supports, old homeworks, quizzes, notes, whatever it is. Great. We're going to do what we did, but now we're going to put it aside and we're going to take our second study guide and now we're going to fill it out. And we're going to fill it out without all of that support because here's the thing. The brain has, we always say this, the brain might think it knows it, but the mouth has to prove it, right? It's that same thing. Yeah. You've got to prove it. Right. So I want you to do it. And here's where it gets interesting. There's holes, right? I don't know what the 7 gods of Mesopotamia are. Oh, I forgot about the cultural, whatever it is. I could teach you on Mesopotamia. I don't know why. I just can do it. So now I've got holes. Fine. So now I'm going to study and, get those answers. And now I've done my study guide a second time. But here's where it gets interesting. What we do is we take that third study guide and yes, we cut it up. And I mean literally cut it up because the concern we have is there is a perceived notion that I got it. When your child knows question 1 and they know question 3, but they kind of sort of maybe don't really know question 2, they're going to bypass it and go, of course I know 2 because I know 1 and 3, right? It's that false sense of knowledge. Right. So we got to pull it apart and everybody has to live alone. There are no roommates in my world. Right. Everybody lives alone. I know you're laughing, but remember who we're talking to. Right. No roommates. Everybody has their own bedroom. Everybody has their own dorm room. Everybody lives alone. So we cut it up. We mix it up. You pull one out. Now answer the question. And when you can answer all of them, you're done.
Whoa, that's amazing.
That's how you do a study guide.
Right. Very good. Okay, swing it over to teachers. We touched on teachers a little bit. But what else can teachers do to be helpful?
So I think teachers are very helpful. What I always say, because I go into classrooms and I observe, and I also teach teachers about executive functioning and what to look for. And what's very fascinating is I will say to them, you're doing so many things that, teachers are amazing. They are the heroes and sheroes. But I said, I don't know if you know what you're doing is having the outcome that it has, meaning in the neurodiverse, universe. Right. So here's my biggest thing for teachers. It's all about, in my world, how you structure your classroom. So fun fact, we ask kids all the time, who do you like the most? Because we don't really care. Right. It's who's your most organized teacher? Hands down is always the math teacher. I don't know why, right? It's always the math, but it makes sense. Math is a very organized subject, right? It's very finite. So the thing we always say to teachers is a few things. As organized as you can be and as consistent in that organization you can be, the better it will be. And here's the thing. What we are talking about is called universal learning. Very similar to universal design. Universal design was created, right? Curb cuts, closed caption, all of that was done originally for a specific subset of people who might have been visually or physically impaired. What did they find out? All of us benefit. I don't know about you, but I watch The Pit with the words on the screen because they talk so fast and I can't always understand what they're saying. It benefits me. Right. So it's the same thing with universal learning. All of this benefits every kid in a classroom, neurodiverse or not. I really want to make that point. Okay. So we want to be as organized as possible. We want to be as consistent as possible. We want to be as visual as possible. So if you're walking into the classroom, what I want to see the red bin says the do now, meaning kid picks it up to do now. The white bin says homework due. The yellow bin is homework to do. I don't want there to be any guessing. I want everything clear. I want my teachers to, if they can, structure their classrooms in what we call low effort and high effort. Hear me out. Low effort is when your child walks into a classroom, they might have to do a do now. So it's low effort on their part. They're working and they're processing, but they're not listening to someone. They're not processing someone else's information. They're not having to, do their working memory, all of that. It's low effort. And they can also, look around the room and get visuals. Okay, if Max is working, on the do now, I should be working on the do now. Okay. After their brain warms up, usually what happens is this teacher will say, okay, time for class. And now we're on high alert. Teachers are teaching, right? So I'm processing, I'm listening, I'm doing all of that. But my brain can't stay there. We can't stay on high alert. And usually what happens is then the teacher will say, okay, last 10 minutes of class, finish up, work with your partner, do all that. It now comes down to low effort. That modulation is what helps and sustains your child's brain through the day. Because if they were on high alert for 8 hours, put a fork in them, they'd be done.
Right.
So I like that structure, and most teachers do it. They're like, wow, I didn't even realize I was doing it for that purpose. And then what I see a lot of teachers do also, which is brilliant, is they don't answer a question immediately. They ask the student to figure it out.
Right.
There are a lot of times a student says something that we as parents think are questions that are not. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I'm tired. I can't find. I don't know how. Your student didn't ask you a question. This is now for the parent. Teachers know that. So they'll say, is there something you need? Is there something you don't understand? Is there something you're struggling with? What can I help you with? What does that look like? Where have you seen it before? We need to be doing the same thing as parents. We need to not be answering questions when none are asked.
Good. We're going to sort of lead them with questions. You can't lead a witness, but you can lead a student.
Yes. Yeah. It really helps that brain become problem solving. We want our kids to figure stuff out. Right. So that's how we do it, by asking questions.
Very good. As far as preparing students for here in New York, we got Regents this time of year, as you know, that sort of thing.
I'm a New York girl. I took Regents exams, yes.
So what can teachers do on that front to prepare kids for those, or for finals too?
I'm going to go back to my experiential experience. I'm going to go back to helping kids figure out what's their best way to study, offering up like different ways for them to lay down learning.
Got it. So the teacher can be forthcoming on that. Right.
Absolutely. Offering up maybe, listen, I think, and I get a lot of pushback from parents. I'm a big believer in study groups. I love study groups. They're a great way to underwhelm the brain and not have so much cognitive overload. With a study group, your kid literally has to teach somebody, and there is no better way that is the number way to study. We ask kids all the time, what's the number one way you study? And they go, I reread my notes. Right. I'm like, that's not studying. That's not a thing. Right. Rereading notes is nothing. It's the most passive nothing. The number one thing is teaching somebody, and it's the thing kids do the least. So encouraging study groups, hey, let's teach each other is probably the number one thing parents, teachers, students could do. Right.
Amazing. Okay, as we start to wrap it up, what's a message of hope you can leave our listeners with?
It's very funny because on the podcast I did before this, someone said, what would you tell like young Leslie, and I said, what I would tell even young Leslie, and even though I do this for a living, don't worry so much. Focus that your kids, with room, right. Your kids will figure things out. Right. You just have to let them do it in their own way and in their own time.
Amazing. Okay. Anything else you wanted to mention today?
I think we covered so much. This is like rapid fire. Yeah. No, I just really, really, really want parents to remember that it is your job as the parent to set parameters, but it is your child's job to negotiate that. They are allowed to negotiate with you. Embrace that, love it, earn it, communicate it.
Okay, awesome. I would add with kids with ADHD, they have that very creative brain and the persistence. So it'll be
Lead
lively.
with lead with curiosity.
Very good. Okay, how can people get in touch with you?
Easy. Name of my company is Order Out of Chaos. Our website is Order OO Chaos. And if you go there, you'll find our webinars, our programs, our videos, our books, articles, anything you need, our socials, if that's how you want your information. Just head to that website, and from there, you'll go anywhere you need to go.
Okay, awesome. Leslie Josel, thank you so much. This is a great conversation.
You're so welcome. You ask great questions. Wow.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
I hope everybody learned something. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the ADHD Heroes podcast. For questions about the podcast, you can email us at adhdheroespodcast@gmail.com. Also, for sponsorships or to share your story, your ADHD story, you can also email us at the same place, adhdheroespodcast@gmail.com. To be in touch with me about ADHD coaching, writing, or speaking engagements, you can email me at rsreichadhdcoach@gmail.com. Be sure to check out my website, rsreich.com, adhdcoach.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn, or you can check out my blog on nefesh.org. Check out my blog there under my name. Important disclaimer: podcasts are great, but they do not take the place of mental health help or medical help. So if you need help with mental health or need a doctor, be sure to be in contact with some of them. Please, if you like this show, please rate, review, and share with a friend. That's how these things get out there. Thank you again for listening, and thank you to our producers at Pretty Easy Podcasts.